Is your baby over 4 months old and waking more than once a night? Well, they won't be after you watch this video. Hi, my name is Jensine Casey. I am your sleep BFF, and I bring together my years and degrees of sleep science magic mixed with real life strategies, because mom life, right? To bring you real and tried and true strategies to get your child sleeping through the night. So there are 5 things that everyone needs to be able to get more sleep. And I'm going to give you all 5 right in this video. So of the 5 things that you need to know of why your baby is probably waking up at night, the first one that we want to kind of check off the list is hunger. We want to ensure that when your baby is waking up, they genuinely are not hungry. That is a big concern for a lot of parents, and you really feel conflicted between, my baby is awake and typically I would feed them. How do I know when not to feed them? Because I don't want them to be starving and unable to sleep because they're hungry. So we want to just check that one right off the list and address it first, that big elephant in the room, because I want to make sure that you feel comfortable as you're moving through these strategies. So first, we want to make sure that your child is getting enough of their nutrition during the day so they're not needing to feed at night. Oftentimes what can happen is children start to reverse cycle a little bit. So once they're waking up more at night and they're being fed more overnight, it's leading to them needing less ounces and calories during the day because they're getting a lot of that at night. We want to help them reverse that so they're getting more, the majority, if not all, of the ounces and calories that they need to grow and gain weight during the day, so they need less and less overnight. So first, you're going to make sure that you're tracking how much they're intaking during the day. And that is really, really hard to do if you're breastfeeding. You can go to a lactation consultant and have them do some weighted feeds. You can wait until your next pediatrician's appointment and make sure that they are staying on their curve and growing and gaining weight. You can track how often they are nursing, how long they are nursing for, just to be able to get a good indication of how much they are actually getting during the day. So you want to just check in around that and make sure that you are offering the right amount and that they are continuing to grow and gain weight as we're working on these sleep skills. The second thing that you're going to want to think about is diaper leaks. Those are a big reason that children wake overnight, especially in the early morning hours. If they haven't been changed earlier in the night, and by the time it hits like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, they could have a really soiled diaper, and it's hard for them to sleep through that. They might even like pee through or leak through a diaper, a sleep sack, sheets, all that good stuff. So something that we have personally used and absolutely love are Sposy pads. I'm going to put the link in the description as well, because they were an absolute lifesaver for us when my son was about 5, maybe 6 months old, and he started waking up right around 4:35 a.m. every morning and was soaked, like chest soaked, because he liked to sleep on his belly, and just the position that he would get himself in, it would shift his diaper and it would just soak everything. So we love the Sposy pads in our house. I've used them for all 3 of my children because they were just such a lifesaver. They're just a little extra pad that you can put into any brand diaper that acts as an extra layer of absorbency, so that any extra pee just gets soaked right up. That's not going to happen for if they are having a bowel movement overnight. It's not really going to help them, because then they still would need to be changed. So that is going to be something that's addressed in a different video. But just for those like pee leaks, those Sposy pads are going to do it. So definitely hop on that. Grab them on Amazon, and that can be one of the reasons that can have your child sleeping through the night, because they're not waking up soaked and cold. The third reason is light. This is a big one that a lot of parents just don't know how sensitive children are to light. And this goes back to like caveman days, that primitive software that we still have. So everyone in those caveman days, we were set to, once the sun went down, that's when our bodies naturally started to get tired as the light was leaving the world, leaving where we lived. And then as the sun was coming up, that was our signal to wake up, start to, do your chores or whatever it was in those farming days. And our programming is still very similar to that. So any little peaks of light that come into your child's room really set something off in their brain to say, it's morning, it's time to wake up, sleep is done. So we want to help mitigate that, because depending on where you live, the sun is going to rise at a very different time in the wintertime versus in the summertime. So we want to help them be consistent so their internal body clock is setting when it's time to wake up over the light that's waking them. So if you do not have a good pair of blackout shades, I would highly recommend them. I can also pop a recommendation to Easy Blackout shades in the description. That is what we use and love, because the blackout curtains aren't always doing the job. There's always some space at the bottom, at the top, a little bit in between, because you can't perfectly close the curtains. So blackout shades are always my recommendation. And I love the Easy Blackout ones because they're easy to take off and put back on if you want to have the windows open during the day. One of the fourth reasons, there's going to be 5. The fourth reason is sound machines. So I was just talking to a client recently, and they would turn the sound machine onto a timer when their child was initially falling asleep, and it would turn off about 20 minutes after it was set. And then they were having a lot of night wakings, and every time they would go in, they would turn that sound back on. And that is something that I recommend against. I like to have the sound machine run all night, because any of those sound disturbances are enough to wake a child from their sleep, to be able to say, oh, something in your environment is different and we need to wake up and pay attention to that. So having a sound machine that runs continuously through the night, that you can just set the button, leave the room and forget, is going to be really helpful to your child's sleep. It might seem like it's something super, super small, but it can have a really big impact in helping your child be able to fall asleep and to stay asleep for the duration of the night. So if any of these things are like presenting this light bulb moment for you, and you're like, oh my goodness, I never thought about the sound machine, I'm also just setting it to a 20-minute timer, or yes, the diaper leaks, that is awesome, we didn't know how to solve it, then definitely pop them in the comments. I would love to hear that. Stay tuned, because I have one more tip that is going to be the difference maker. But I would love to know now if any of these 4 things that I just discussed are things that are coming up for you, because these things are just as important as the next one, but the next one is really going to be that like kind of holy grail of what is going to have your child sleeping through the night. So the last one, the 5th one, is independence as they're falling asleep. So if your child is needing any support to be able to initially fall asleep, they're going to need that same support at the end of their sleep cycle to be able to get back to sleep. And that seems sometimes counterintuitive in some examples for children, because your child may be falling asleep really easily and quickly at bedtime, and they're just seemingly to have a problem with the middle of the night wake ups. But it's actually how they're falling asleep at bedtime and how fast they are falling asleep at bedtime. That's the problem, which seems, again, just completely backwards. So we want our children to be able to have these self-soothing skills at bedtime, so that when they wake up in the middle of the night, they're able to pull them back out and to use them. So if your child is falling asleep in less than 5 minutes, if you are putting them into their crib and they are just immediately like move and are out, if you're putting them into the crib when they are already asleep, that is going to make it really difficult for them to develop any sort of self-soothing skills, because they don't have to initially do it to fall asleep. So when they wake up, they're kind of clueless and they don't have the skill set to be able to get themselves back to sleep, because they never had to initially do it. So we want to actually make that bedtime harder. We want to wake them up. We want them to be wide awake when you put them into their cribs, so that once they do go in there, they figure out how to get themselves to sleep, so they can figure out again how to get themselves back to sleep when they wake in the middle of the night. The biggest opposition to this is, what do I do when my baby cries? And crying is actually not a bad thing. Crying teaches us what our children need and when they need something. Because if our babies never cried, we would never know when they were hungry, when they were wet, when they were tired, when they just had an uncomfortable tag sticking into them. So crying is something that is needed. The big crying question in regards to falling asleep is covered in the pinned video in my channel. So if you go back to that video, it's going to talk all about crying and how to mitigate that crying as you're helping your child fall asleep, because that is the big concern. And I want you to feel super comfortable and confident understanding your baby's cries, so that you can all get the night of sleep that you deserve and get the best sleep you have had since becoming a parent. So make sure you go back and you watch that video, that crying video that is pinned in my channel. It's going to give you so much more information to help you feel confident and empowered around helping your child learn to fall asleep independently and what those cries mean. So I will see you in that video.